Warning to new players who haven't played Devil May Cry 5. This review will contain a ton of in-depth spoilers to Devil May Cry 5's plot, including a ton of gameplay spoilers. So if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the game without having to worry about spoilers, you could watch my last video, Son of Sparda Retrospective, Part 5.1. The link will be in the description of this video. Last time I left off mentioning that DMC5's story tackles a lot of heavy-handed themes of power, redemption, and even family. So welcome to the final part of the Son of Sparda Retrospective, as we dive deep into all of the nuances and themes that Devil May Cry 5's plot has to offer. Kick it, Johnny! In order to talk about this plot properly in depth, I would have to go over each individual character, starting us off with Nero. Now, I would like to point out that Nero's characterization has improved vastly since we last saw him in DMC4. No longer does he have the Kyrie crutch to hold him back, even though she's still very prominent to his character arc in DMC5. Nero is a very respectable protagonist in this game. Here's how Moriyashi-san accomplishes this. At the start of the game, you wind up seeing an armless Nero, then he goes to confront the one who took his appendage, to then be defeated by Urizen. After that, Dante regains consciousness, and without hesitation, attempts to rescue Nero and tells Nero and V to run away. Nero refuses, claims that he can still fight, so in Dante's tough love mannerisms, he says this to Nero.
It's Nero! Go! You're just dead weight!
This gives Nero a clear goal and focus to take down Urizen and to prove to Dante and himself that he isn't useless in any way. This may seem shallow and petty on the surface, but Moriyashi-san uses this fact to illustrate that Nero is a lot more like Virgil in more ways than we've ever thought of believing.
Without strength, you can't protect anything. I know that.
This underlining feeling of inadequacy makes Nero active in the pursuit of Urizen, illustrated in the narrative and gameplay via the Urizen fights, where you are meant to lose these. But since this is a Devil May Cry game, if you are good enough, you can actually beat Urizen either at the start of the prologue or at Mission 8. So yeah. What I do like is when Nero is defeated, he doesn't cry about it profusely. In fact, he gets up and continues his pursuit of the Demon King. There is even a deeper motivation for him wanting to gain power that ties back to the events of DMC4. But to get to that, I'll have to talk about the other two lead characters, which brings me to the mysterious assailant, V. When you first play the game, you're not supposed to be sure of V's intentions or origins for that matter, so the DMC crew of Nero, Nico, and Lady, or even Dante, aren't exactly sure if he should be trusted or not. So for a good half of the game, he's somewhat of a cryptic enigma who likes to recite William Blake every chance he gets. To put it bluntly, he's a weirdo who doesn't stay up front with anybody. You don't even know what his vendetta against Urizen is until you find out who he, and by extension, Urizen is. Where it turns out that V and Urizen are both two separate halves of Virgil. Not only do you start making more sense of V's actions, the plot uses this separation of Virgil's demon side Urizen and Virgil's humanity as an underlining character study of Virgil, till his very resurrection, where it shows how shallow and empty his pursuit of power can actually get. Because Urizen is essentially Mundus on steroids, while Urizen is horrifying and intimidating, he is nothing more than a shallow antagonist, and it works to the plot's favor, to contrast his demonic side to his more nuanced human half V. While V is on his own, he gives his own perspective on matters to Griffin. That's when Griffin asks anyways.
You're awfully quiet, V. Thinking about Mommy Dearest?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. But the past is a bitter place for me.
Where we come to realize that V is an individual troubled by his past crimes as Virgil and by his traumatic childhood experiences of loneliness and defeat for several years. So what we learn from V's pursuit of power is that a lot of our past demons and insecurities can deter us from happiness and hope for a brighter future. Despite all of that, V can be the goofball to Nero's straight man in this game, in his own unique poetic ways. Take a look at this.
Little wanderer. I thee home.
Thought I was gonna have to pick you out of his, tummy teeth.
Pardon my delay. I was catching up on some reading.
Yeah, looks like a real page-turner.
V is also a wisecracker himself, spouting out poetic one-liners. To put it into perspective, V is an extremely entertaining, complex, and layered character who does a really good job of further fleshing out an already masterfully written character, Virgil, making him a much more layered character. Before I could address Virgil's development and Nero's underlying need for power that came from Devil May Cry 4, we'll just have to turn our attention to everyone's favorite red coat wearing, pizza loving badass, the legendary devil hunter himself, Dante. Before we dive into Dante's DMC5 incarnation, I'll just tell you this. DMC3 and DMC5 Dante are, in my opinion, the greatest incarnations of his character, and that is no exaggeration. Here's why DMC5 Dante is one of the greatest characters ever written. When we first see Dante before the fight with Urizen, we see our favorite crimson-clad devil hunter in a rather uncaring state. Hell, he doesn't even give a damn about playing the Devil May Cry's utilities.
Cash up front. This I like. The water needs turning on and those toilets need flushing.
Water, gas, and power. Coming out of your cut. You're a real agency now.
Because of his traumatic childhood, and by extension the traumatic instances where he was forced to lose his brother in the underworld at the end of Devil May Cry 3, and also being forced to kill his brother again while he was possessed by Mundus on Malay Island. At this point in Dante's career, he's had a feeling of monotony from his devil hunting jobs, because he's presumably been doing it for many years, with the burden of his past losses on his shoulders, where he initially shows a lack of interest in the jobs that V is offering, until V reveals the name of the demon. Guess what he told him?
This demon got a name?
Come on, it's obvious they told him Virgil. This is where Dante turns all of his attention on confronting his brother, so he quickly gets back into the swing of things and goes after his brother to end the 18-year-long conflict. But it's where Nero shows up. We see Dante's desire to get him out of harm's way, alongside of ridding him of potential trauma, albeit in his own tough love way.
Go! You're just dead weight!
It shows that he has become fully aware of the pain and sadness that comes from losing a close family member by our own hands can bring, where not even time can heal these wounds. Dante even tries to dissuade Nero from taking this fight on multiple occasions. In fact, when Dante goes after Urizen, he's pretty dead set on taking out the Demon King. So, when Dante ends up saving Trish from her possession, he just leaves her bare ass naked on the ground for V to take care of. Unlike Nero, where he saved Lady from a similar possession, he ends up sheltering her in the Devil May Cry van, with Trish even stating that the whole ordeal is essentially Dante's war. Just like Devil May Cry 3, both brothers are ideologically different on their paths and their ideals regarding their humanity and demonic heritage, with Dante only seeking power out of pure necessity to take out Urizen just because he proved to be too much for Dante to handle, while Urizen, Virgil's pure devilish half, is still on the pursuit of absolute power by growing the Clifoth in the middle of Redgrave City to grow the demon fruit that granted Mundus the power to become Demon King of the Underworld, where Dante still holds on to his human ideals bestowed upon him by Ava. But speaking of gaining power out of necessity, does anyone remember all the times that Dante got impaled by his own sword? Yeah, that series running gag. Well, in Mission 12, Dante gets to his old home, where Griffin catches up to him. It's here where we see the Demon Hunter recall the events in Devil May Cry 3, where his demonic power was activated in him once. He also starts wondering why did Sparda pass the rebellion down to him, with his father's sword on his back, till he realizes how Virgil went about to become Urizen, and retroactively contrasting the main abilities of the two blades. Yamato can separate man from devil, henceforth it was used to separate the human and demon realm, while Rebellion is a sword that combines the two halves. So in typical Dante fashion, he ends up making fun of his past stabbings, to then stab himself with his broken Rebellion, where this happens.
If the Yamato can separate man from devil, then what about the rebellion?
Wow. You are absorbing the Sparda.
The whole significance of this scene is to show Dante's own growth and maturity throughout the entire series, in comparison to his older brother, who has remained static throughout the entire series, where Virgil commences to attain power by removing everything that he presumes is weak, including his own humanity. He even faces away from the Sparda family portrait, as to him, that family has abandoned him a long time ago, after the time where the home was attacked by Mundus's minions, where Eva wasn't able to get to him in time. That further drives the point home that Virgil hasn't been able to fully grow and accept all aspects of his being, while Dante, on the other hand, is a guy who has been rejecting his demonic heritage for quite some time, but in this instance, Dante actually fully embraces both his human and demonic halves. Even when he's stabbing himself with the broken rebellion, he's facing his and Virgil's family portrait, as we truly see where Dante's real strength comes from. It's from his very own humanity, where in this instance, Dante accepting his demon half is far more human than we realize. It's him truly accepting that one part in his life that he tried to run away from for so long. Even the absorption of the Sparda sword is symbolic of Dante reuniting with his long-lost father, after all these years of being only attached to his mother, where both of his human and demon halves are combined, allowing Dante to reach his full potential by unlocking the Sin Devil Trigger and his very own Devil Sword Dante. And as a series fan, man, I gotta tell you, my jaw hit the floor the first time I saw this thing, because the design of the two of them, the Sin Devil Trigger and the Devil Sword Dante, are just so fucking badass, man. I mean, the Devil Sword Dante just looks like a hybrid between the Rebellion and the Sparda Sword. Hell, even the pommel is the perfect amulet. And the fact that Dante just materializes the thing is just so goddamn cool. And it also makes Thor's Mjolnir look like a basic bitch weapon by comparison. Not only that, the DSD gives Dante a crap ton of mechanics to play around with, including his own version of summoned swords, that work very differently to Virgil's. Rather than using it to shield himself by a barrage of summoned swords around him, or use it to surround opponents, instead, they are worked in with your Devil Trigger and styles, where with Swordmaster, it'll increase the damage output of the attacks, while giving your Swordmaster strikes and other melee strikes a much wider range. When it comes to Trickster, Dante's aerial and ground mobility will get a big boost, while in Gunslinger, the summoned swords will fire off at enemies while Dante gets close to them, which ends up adding a lot to the gun tricks in damage output and in style output. Well, what about Royal Guard? Well, what happens is that Royal blocks become a bit more easier to pull off, because the Swordmaster forms an actual shield while Dante is guarding. Not to mention that the Swordmaster, Air Rave, and Prop Shredder are not tied to the Swordmaster style, where DSD Swordmaster involves ways of manipulating Dante's newly acquired summoned swords. But that ain't it, folks. I present to you the Sin Devil Trigger, and holy shit, bruv, this form is insanely overpowered. Where could I start with this thing? It's a goddamn behemoth of a Devil Trigger. The basic attacks that you get with this thing can just mop the floor with anything it lays in contact with. Hell, even the basic Fireball burns the demons to a crisp. The Sin Devil Trigger can be upgraded with red orbs to unlock exclusive moves for it, and goddamn, these are the most OP tricks that you will ever get. You can generate black holes to blow the fuck out of the enemies, pulverize them, with DMC1's Vortex, but this time it's on crack. Rain down on your enemies with a constant barrage of death lasers. Oh, and Sin Devil Trigger gives Dante his own version of Judgment Cut N, called Doomsday, and well... yeah, everybody died. And the way you activate Sin Devil Trigger, you have to hold down the Devil Trigger button to sacrifice the standard DT gauge to fill up the Sin gauge to activate it. Once you turn it on, you get the best activation animation ever seen in a video game. But here's a quicker way to go into Sin Devil Trigger in and out of regular combos by a mechanic called Quadruple S. For this one, you have to be sure that your Triple S rank is at its peak. While that happens, you'll be able to freely switch back and forth from your regular form to your Sin Devil Trigger, allowing you to get even wilder and crazier with your combo strings. So after Dante's reawakening, Dante quickly heads off to face Urizen, rescuing Nero from the Demon King's grasp, where we see the Demon Slayer with a grit where he's not even trying to enjoy the battle. Instead, he's trying to end the fight quickly like how he was when confronting Mundus, where Dante is angry with his brother and disappointed in him. At the same time, yet, he knows that this is what must be done, because at this point, the brother that he once knew is gone from this world, replaced by this abomination. But as the battle is about to come to a halt, Dante comments to the former shell of his brother's self that after all of this time he still doesn't get it, where he yet again underestimates Urizen's power compared to his newly acquired abilities, as Urizen explains that the Clifoth is almost complete to its fullest, where the Devil Fruit can be reached at this moment. Where Urizen heads off to attain the Devil Fruit, Dante goes after him, then he's gone. So as Dante continues his pursuit, he comes across the allured Devil May Cry van, where he reconvenes with Nero and V, where Nero tells Dante that he's coming along and that the Devil Breakers are more than enough for him to help on the job. However, Dante's still trying to get Nero out of the fight, with Urizen not because he's inadequate, it's because he wants to spare his nephew of the trauma that may come to him if he successfully takes down Urizen. But V suggests that Dante allows Nero to join in on the pursuit. So Dante tells them to split up so that the trio could go their own separate ways, each looking for the Demon King. But before that, Nico, in an absolute state of shock and excitement that she got to meet the legendary Devil Hunter who has killed her insane father in Devil May Cry 4, but more importantly, he carries the final masterpiece created by Nell Goldstein, her deceased grandmother. Yup, told you bits of this novel are canon right now. She gifts him the Dr. Faust that she created. Not only is this a pretty meta weapon for the series, it's also the most overpowered, but the risk-reward factor is high up there. Essentially, this demonic firearm uses the red orbs as ammunition, so each time you end up firing, you end up losing red orbs. There is also a way to increase the amount of red orbs using this strange firearm. You do this by literally throwing the hat at the enemy, so every time you attack, the red orb count doubles. However, when you get hit, you lose more red orbs. The upgradable attacks can drain a lot of the orbs, but if you tagged all the other surrounding enemies and then hit them with the more powerful Dr. Faust moves, you'll gain the lost red orb, plus you'll gain a surplus to what you've already lost, making those microtransactions all the more useless and non-intrusive to the flow of the game. So, as the Crimson Devil Hunter goes after Urizen, he then comes across the monstrous and yet familiar King Cerberus, where he's intrigued by this familiar looking foe. As he starts to banter with the creature, it seems all too familiar to Dante, where he finds excitement with this fight. After he defeats the threat, he gladly accepts the new King Cerberus, an enhanced version of the ice nunchucks seen in Devil May Cry 3. But this time, you can swap between 3 elements: ice, fire, and lightning, where each element becomes its own weapon, with the fire elemental being a bow staff weapon that gives Dante a decent set of AoE attacks and some good rapid strikes that add a lot to your style gauge, while the lightning elemental becomes a Kasuragama type weapon that provides some good projectile and quick attacks, while also giving you some badass AoE attacks. So in short, King Cerberus is a great multifunctional devil arm that helps in comboing up a lot of the enemies more stylishly, and it's useful for crowd control situations. After the encounter with King Cerberus, Dante dives deeper into the demon tree till its very end has been reached. Then he catches up with the demonic half of his brother, where he's staring at the fruit that he believes will end his many years of suffering and defeat, as Dante attempts to reason with him, where he tries to seek out a shred of humanity out of him, where he even tells Virgil that when their mother caught up to him and saved him, that she was looking for him so that she could save him as well, but then she died at the hands of Mundus. While Urizen comments that he has no recollection of those events or the land that he's in, he even states that it was an illusion created by the fruit, even going so far as to say that the power that the fruit provided is all that he ever wanted. So then he bites it, with Dante being too late to stop him from consuming the fruit. Dante even tells Virgil that he doesn't have everything, especially after throwing away his humanity, where after the two fought, Dante ultimately comes out as the victor. In this, despite Urizen consuming the devil fruit that gave Mundus the power to rule the demon realm, further illustrating how fruitless Virgil's pursuit of power actually was. So as Dante is about ready to finish Urizen off, Nero and V finally catch up to him, as Nero questions him, asking if Urizen was his brother the entire time, after learning that information from V prior. While Dante confirms this information to be correct, V's crumbling flesh and body heads off to Urizen's weakened body, as Dante commands V to stay back to finish Urizen off. V requests that he'd be the one to land the final blow. So V heads off to the weakened Demon King, commenting to him that he sees him in the last throes of defeat, while Urizen responds with a "he can't lose, especially not to Dante," as Dante smirks off after hearing that line. He even says the iconic "power, I need more power" Virgil line, as V tells him that both are connected by that one feeling, and that feeling is the desire for more power, where Dante realizes that V was Virgil's humanity all along. However, Dante realizes the consequences of his brother's return, so he attempts to stop Virgil's resurrection, but upon that late realization, the Alpha and Omega Darkslayer is reborn whole, with Dante even being furious at his brother for all the prior events of summoning the Qlipoth that murdered many innocent lives, attempting to murder him, and most of all cutting his own son's arm off. So Dante immediately strikes him, claiming that he has some major cojones for coming back and that he doesn't even know when to give up. But even then, Dante's energy was consumed from the previous battle with Urizen. With Virgil still wanting to best his brother in combat, he even tells Dante to heal his wounds so that the brothers can finally settle their long battle after momentarily defeating Dante, where Virgil uses the Yamato's dimension slicing abilities to escape. Before the Darkslayer takes his leave, he ends up thanking Nero for making him realize the true strength of humanity that he has failed to see for so long, and most probably for making him whole again. So then Nero asks Dante if Virgil is his brother. Then what happened to V? Dante then tells him that he returned to himself. Then he tells him to back away from the fight, where Nero reminds Dante that he lost his limb because of him. So Dante tells him that he doesn't get it. Nero shrugs off the comment by reiterating the "oh, it's because I'm dead weight." Then Dante reveals his true intentions by giving Nero this revelation.
He's your father!
Upon hearing this revelation, Nero was in an absolute state of shock, not knowing what to think at that moment. So Dante tells the young devil hunter that he had the feeling the first time that he saw him, but he wasn't sure. But then he saw how the Yamato reacted to him. Then he was certain that Virgil was his father, and he further tells him that he needs to be stopped, but he can't have him kill his own father. So Dante heads off yet again to pursue his older, power-hungry brother, where he just so happens to reconvene at the Devil May Cry van yet again. As the entire DMC crew asks what's going on with the escalation of the situation, Dante reveals Virgil's return. So Nico hands the Kalina Ann 2 with the successor to Lady's Kalina Ann rocket launcher that functions quite similarly to DMC3's Kalina Ann rocket launcher, with its hard-hitting projectiles that does a good job of controlling the crowd with a lot of the insane homing missile attacks with the gunslinger. But what if I told you that if you head back into Mission 11, where you can get to a secret location where a very pleasant surprise awaits you? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can unlock the original Kalina Ann, it works just like how it did in DMC3, but you can dual wield both of them, where you get double the firepower of the homing missiles, and you can actually scissor the two together to fire off the biggest fuck-off laser you'd ever see. Indeed, Dante, indeed. After receiving a bit of aid from Nico, Dante goes forth to end the feud once and for all. But on his way towards his brother, he comes across the familiars that have been aiding V throughout the entire game. As the Devil Hunter banters to the familiars, even wondering where they've been, even thinking that they should have went back into Virgil, where Griffin immediately tells Dante that they are merely Virgil's own nightmares from the time that he was Nilo Angelo under the control of Mundus. Where they have grown sympathetic to Virgil's disposition, they even want to atone and make up for the times that their previous incarnations, and even where their Nilo Angelo state, failed to defeat Dante, where they immediately challenge the Demon Slayer to a fight to the death. Which brings me to Mission 18. Throughout the entire game, a lot of the callbacks have been specifically DMC 3 and 4 references, with a bit of DMC 1 references sprinkled here and there. But on the 18th mission, the whole dev team decided to go full force on the DMC 1 callbacks, where you will be fighting off a lot of the 3 main bosses of the first game. Those include Shadow, Griffin, and Nightmare, albeit he's vastly different from his 18-year-old incarnation. And that's probably for the better, because DMC 1 Nightmare was not really that fun, and he was kind of a pain in the ass, if I'm being honest. Anyways, since you've been controlling them throughout the game as V, the game tests you on how well you truly know their attacks. Where if you are really good at playing as V, you'll find yourself knowing Griffin's lightning attack patterns and how to deal with them. You will even be able to find ways around Shadow's blade forms, where you'll find ways to dodge them. And if you're ballsy enough, you'll find yourself going in for a few good guards. Hell, even little things like knowing how Nightmare drops in, along with his different forms of attack, it'll help in getting around him to exploit his weaknesses. But yet again, if you don't know jack shit about their attack patterns, you will properly get your teeth kicked in. Oh, and here's one catch. The boss themes here are pretty much remixed boss themes from DMC 1. Check this out. This entire mission is a very well put together and an excellent piece of fan service that is a very respectful tribute to Hideki Kamiya's work on the first Devil May Cry game that started the whole franchise. In fact, this mission will give you this feeling.
It's like I'm back on Malay Island.
After Dante defeats the Nightmares, Griffin tells Dante that this is their last flight, and that if he had a little trouble in dealing with them, then he won't be able to defeat Virgil, where Dante sees and respects the creature's admiration and attempt to guard Virgil and end his nightmare, reminding the now legendary Devil Hunter of the selfless sacrifice that Eva did for him during his childhood, so that he would live on, where Griffin wishes Dante Godspeed and that he'll desperately need it, where Dante bids Griffin farewell in his own brand of honor.
Rest in peace, little chicken. It's been a bash.
Dante finally reaches Virgil, prepared to face him for the last time, where Dante tells Virgil in a commanding fashion that his portal opening days are numbered, so he demands that Virgil gives him the Amato, but Virgil, wanting a confrontation with his younger brother, he responds by the notion of if he wants the sword, he'll have to take it by himself, exclaiming that he already knew that himself, Dante knowing that his brother won't go down so easily, where Dante already knew that he'd say that, where Virgil asks Dante about how many times did the two fight, where Dante points out that it's the only memory that he has of them since they were kids. The two brothers share a smirk, where Dante is willing to finish this fight off once and for all. Where we get to Virgil's boss fight, even though Virgil does have a lot of new tricks up his sleeve, the battle feels very similar to the one that they had in the Underworld from many years, even if this one is a tad bit easier than the one in DMC 3, but the final fight shows us that that's all what Dante and Virgil know throughout their lives, and that's fighting in constant competition towards each other. Towards the tail end of their battle, we see that the brothers are equally matched, with both of them seeming to be down from both of their respective blows, where Virgil remembers Dante questioning if this is the reason why he cut his own son's arm off, so the Darkslayer, in that moment of confusion, questions Dante if Nero is his own son, where Dante calls his brother a dumbass, asking if he couldn't get that through his thick skull, where Virgil literally says this:
Well, well. That was a long time ago.
Dante laughs it off and retorts that as much as he'd love to hear that story, but at that point, it's about time that they'd end this, so the two brothers activate their Sin Devil trigger with killing intent as they quickly charge at each other, while all of a sudden they are stopped by a mysterious demonic figure powerful enough to stop them at their apex power. Before the battle takes place, we see Nero fleeing the collapsing Clifon, where he catches up with the van. We see the young devil hunter asking Trish and Lady, "Where's Dante?" where Trish tells him that Dante has the situation under control. Nero proceeds to ask Trish if she knows Virgil, where her response is that she knows Virgil vaguely. Nero still perplexed by the revelation, he then relays that information to Trish, while demanding an answer to what's going on. Even though Trish was unsure, she saw Dante's logic in making that realization. With Trish sensing a hatred towards Virgil from Nero, she tells Nero that he can't exactly kill his own father, with Lady even reaffirming Trish's stance by remembering the events of Devil May Cry 3, where she wound up killing off Arkham, where she tells Nero that he won't be able to recover if he'd end up killing his own father. That memory still haunts the walking arsenal to this very day. However, Nero quickly leaves the van on his own to look for the two brothers at the behest of the ladies, but the young devil hunter has completely different intentions to his more experienced uncle. So having said that, the young demon slayer reaches out to a nearby working telephone to call his lover Kyrie for guidance. Naturally, she is worried about his well-being, but Nero expresses that he was lonely for most of his childhood, and that she and her brother Credo was all that he knew. But all of a sudden he has found out about his biological family, and where he doesn't know what to do at this point, where Kyrie tells him that he knows which path is right from the wrong path. It's here where Nero puts his vendetta of revenge aside, remembering the time where he failed to save Credo in Devil May Cry 4, where he regrets it to this very day. The regret of being powerless to save the brother that he had burns deeply inside of him, where he swears that this time it's a different situation, that he won't let his father and uncle kill each other, where we see Nero's true motivation for wanting power. It's to simply be strong enough to protect the family that surround him, where he has seemingly awakened to Sparda's will. So the real full-on devil trigger manifests itself within Nero, so he heads forth to stop the two from murdering each other, where it's revealed that Nero was the strange demonic figure that halted their clash, where both of their Sin Devil triggers are deactivated, where both brothers are in a state of shock, especially Virgil, with even Dante not believing that Nero was able to pull off such a feat. Nero pushes both aside. He then claims that this whole ordeal ends here, where Dante goes ahead and reaffirms to Nero that this fight isn't his, the young devil hunter pushes Dante to the side once again, throwing Dante's dead weight remorque back at him, to then reveal his true intention of not having the brothers kill each other, relaying that there are other ways to settle their differences and to end the long sibling rivalry. Virgil then laughs off Nero's intent, looking at it as a foolish child's ideals, where Nero reinstates that neither he or Dante will die, so Virgil then suggests if he'd beat Nero, then he'd technically beat Dante. Dante, growing tired of this whole shenanigans, sits this battle out, but the fact of the matter is that he sees his nephew's conviction, so he allows him to go through with this, knowing that he grew past him in terms of his humanity. The lowdown on the Nero versus Virgil boss fight, it's much simpler than the last fight, just a little bit. It's not brain dead in the slightest, but however, this boss fight, you get access to Nero's Devil Trigger and the Devil Bringer, where you are effectively playing as Nero from 11 years ago, where the Devil Trigger has similar properties to the DMC4 DT. But here's the plus side, you can upgrade it for specials and use it for the post-game stuff. Same is true for the Devil Bringer, but the first time you use the DT, you realize that the boss is semi-scripted, where your DT bar charges automatically, where you'd expect the music playing to be a violin rendition of the song Legacy, but goddamn that first Devil Trigger activation.
This has nothing to do with you.
Not only does Nero flip Virgil the bird, it even changes the whole tune of the battle theme, where Silver Bullet plays. That's a remix of the Devil Trigger battle theme that's been playing the entire game. That's right, this song has been leading up to this exact moment. Hell, you are even greeted by tutorials on how to use the newfound Buster Arm, where you get some badass finishers on Virgil with it. After Nero defeats Virgil in combat, the Darkslayer is at awe and shock as he is defeated by Nero, who he viewed previously as a lesser opponent, where Dante laughs at Virgil's position in this battle, as he jokes that he cut his own son's arm off for more power, and he still lost the fight, as Dante knows that Nero's humanity was the strongest asset in his arsenal in this battle. With Nero even pointing out to both brothers that what they're doing at this point is childish and that the human world is at stake now, where Dante tells Virgil that Nero is right and that he lost so he'd better close off the newly opened portal, where Virgil decides to compute with Dante, coming along with him, with even Dante claiming that that's the smartest thing that he'd ever said. So then Virgil explains that they would have to go to the underworld to cut off the Qliphoth and then seal the portal with the Yamato. Nero quickly points out that they won't be able to make it out of the underworld, being permanently trapped there, where Dante decides to go along with Virgil so that he'd keep a close eye on his older brother. So the legendary Devil Hunter gives the young Devil Hunter Nero his blessings, even going as far as to let him know that he trusts him to protect the human world. As the brothers of Sparda take their leave, Nero quickly goes after them to see if they can find another way to close the portal without getting trapped in the underworld. But the brothers shove him aside, where Dante bids Nero farewell, as with Virgil, we see him acknowledge his defeat to Nero, even giving him the Book of William Blake that he used to read as a child, as a keepsake to Nero, even assuring him of his potential return and telling him that he won't lose in their next encounter where they meet again, showing that he's become able to set aside his pride to acknowledge his loss in battle. After the reoccurring events of the Qliphoth roots, Nero is left to ponder over the loss of his remaining family, that being his newly found biological father Virgil and the uncle who he admired and looked up to since the Fortuna incident Dante, where the new protector of the human world doesn't have a clue if they'll be returning or if they are permanently trapped in the underworld. Meanwhile, on the other side of existence, the Sons of Sparda are left to cut down the remaining Qliphoth roots, to close down the door to the demon realm once and for all, where the tale ends with the Devil May Cry shop being ran by Morrison, with Lady and Trish serving as the hired guns of the agency, while on the other side of the two realms, the two brothers bond the only way they know how, through the clashing of their blades. But this time, they're not trying to kill each other. They are mainly sparring, trying to find the triumphant victor as a new chapter begins for the Sons of Sparda. So when it comes to Dante's characterization in this game, it's handled masterfully, giving us a much older veteran type of Dante who takes up a lot of responsibility for a lot of his own actions and the actions of his brother, where throughout this game, he's challenged mentally and physically and ideologically, at the same time where we truly see how far the legendary son of Sparda has grown since his spectacular origins in Devil May Cry 3. But don't worry, he's still the same fun-loving, wisecracking badass that we all know and love.
Looks like your master's got you on a pretty short leash. Come on, little puppy. I'll take you out for a walk. Come on, let's go.
Now that I covered the main cast, it's only fair that I get into the supporting cast, starting us off with series newcomer Nico Goldstein, the granddaughter of the .45 caliber artiste herself, Nell Goldstein, who so happens to be the daughter of Agnes from DMC4.
Demise.
Yeah, this weirdo actually got laid somehow. Anyways, Nico is a very unique DMC girl. Instead of a walking vengeful arsenal, or a demonic clone with impressive fighting capabilities, Nico is more of a snarky whistler type of character to Nero's punkish blade, where she makes the breakers and Nero uses them to kick demon ass. But this mechanic actually has a lot going on in terms of character depth. Being the daughter of Agnes, she takes heavy pride in her creation, even going so far as calling her works masterpieces. But being the granddaughter of the legendary Nell Goldstein, Nico is constantly striving to match up to her grandmother and to even surpass Nell's machination. Not only that, she also acts as an allegory for the human world, where the rest of the DMC cast are essentially half demons who go out of their way to take out demons in the most stylish ways they can think of, where they are pretty chilled out in the most mundane situations. But Nico is just a straight up fangirl who at times can get really scared because of all the weird and fucked up shit that's around her, so a coping mechanism of hers is basically making a lot of weird and out of left field jokes that actually land quite well at times.
Ooh-wee. I'm gonna make something amazing out of this.
Did you just sniff that? Do you have any idea where that's been?
Up your butt?
She also shines in a lot of her interactions with Nero and Griffin in particular.
Hold my genius. Cash first.
All the materials I collected for your little pet projects don't count for anything?
My brilliant badass work is worth every dime, you know it.
Well, your quality control sucks ass, and you know that.
Or maybe don't let the demon smack you around so much.
Whatever.
Both Nero and Nico have a sort of a brother-sister dynamic when it comes to their relationship, with their different opinions and arguments towards each other, but they both have an underlying respect and understanding towards one another. Hell, she's even very helpful throughout the entire story, aiding Nero whenever he needs it. Oh, and I really like the fact that she is snarky 24/7 towards Nero and V till she meets Dante, where she goes full awkward fangirl towards him. Heck, that's probably how I'd end up reacting if I actually got to meet Dante, since he's the GOAT. To put it bluntly, Nico is the second best DMC girl to Lady, who comes packing in a great sense of humor, who helps Nero push on further in the narrative. Then we get Griffin, V's loudmouthed wisecracking companion, and by far one of the funniest critters to be seen in a DMC game. This pigeon's comedic timing is just absolute gold. Every time V reads poetry or says something cryptic, Griffin immediately makes fun of V's poetic retorts.
One thought fills immensity.
It's not the time for poetry! Wait, what does that even mean?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
You know what? Griffin is at his best when he's interacting with Dante. Look no further than their Mission 18 banter.
Not a bad line. Feel the same way.
But Griffin isn't just a comic relief side character. He's shown to be a loyal companion to Virgil's humanity, where he listens to V reminiscing about his past and shows genuine compassion to V. This incarnation of Griffin is a great comic relief character that allows us to take a deeper look into Virgil's disposition. However, there is one gripe that I do have with the game's use of Lady and Trish. Just like DMC4, we don't see much from these two. where they are either being saved or staying put in the Devil May Cry van, which is pretty disappointing to say the least. Now I know that their arcs were completed in their respective introductions, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't get any further character development from these two, plus the fact that they don't even get to be featured in any of the action-packed cutscenes, other than getting their asses kicked by Urizen. And I mean, come on, they are Demon Slayers as well. They were shown to be capable of taking on an entire room filled with demons. Hell, when they first met our favorite pizza man, they either stabbed him with his own sword or shot him in the head. So come on, Itsuno, let the babes get in on some of the action. Or you could just throw in that Ladies Night DLC that a lot of people wanted. I smell a shit ton of cash, Itsuno-san. Bango Moriyashi strikes gold yet again because he clearly understands what makes for a great Devil May Cry storyline, where he provides the high stakes to be seen in the series, that expertly handles themes of inadequacy, redemption, power, and its corruption, informing the mantra of absolute power corrupts absolutely, to where it can even be useless, and the effect of familial legacies and loss and the implications of loss, just like Devil May Cry 3. Despite the plot having heavy-handed themes, the plot isn't too preachy and pretentious or self-indulgent in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. It revels in its over-the-top presentation, where the excitement is at an all-time high, with some of the most fun action cutscene choreography by Shinji Shimomura, and fun one-liners where a lot of the returning cast reprises their roles, where the legend himself, Johnny Young Bosch, is back as Nero, giving him that lovable punk attitude that we love him for.
It's a very precious sacrifice. Eating you would do me no good. I must have every last drop to rule the underworld as king.
King? You? I don't know. I mean, you're a big guy and all, but you seem more like a knuckle-scrapping fart in the wind than anything else. No offense.
The Chad himself, Ruben Langdon, is back at it again as Dante, giving him that badass Devil May Care attitude that we know him for.
Is it Halloween already? That costume looks a little big. I thought you had better taste than that. How about I take it in a little?
Fuck it, Ruben is Dante, 100% confirmed. For V, we get Brian Hanford portraying him, who does a lot more than a good job of portraying his mysterious and cryptic nature. But before I give you the sample of the voice, a fair warning to the female audience: be sure to have a contraceptive nearby to prevent any unwarranted pregnancies.
Run away if you're not a boy.
He who desires but act not breeds pestilence. So it is written.
For Nico, we have Faye Kingsley, who gives Nico a great southern accent that represents her snarkiness.
Yo, lady, wake up! It's time to get to work.
I was just told to get some rest.
Oh, you were just told to get some rest? Well, we need to make a path, so start digging.
As for the Alpha and Omega Virgil and Urizen, we have Dan Southworth reprising the role, giving a commanding and intimidating performance as Urizen, where it's his Virgil voice, but deepened.
Will regret being born useless and human. I will show you your worst nightmares. I will give you despair and death.
But as for Virgil himself, Dan gives a more calmed down performance as the Darkslayer himself, where there is a lot of self-reflection in his voice.
That day, if our positions were switched, would our fates be different? Would I have your life and you mine?
A lot of the same motion capture techniques that were in DMC3 are present here, but the technology has been heightened, where a lot of minute details like facial expressions and slight muscle movement is further highlighted. So with great talent and heightened motion capture technology at Shimomura-san's disposal, you will be damned that we will be getting some of the craziest sick action cutscenes. Oh, and if you guys want a good laugh, check out some of the behind the scenes storyboarding for these cutscenes. You will find yourself laughing your ass off. However, I do feel that some of the latter parts of the plot is on the rush side, like Virgil's redemption arc at the end. Or maybe it was just the start of that arc, where we could get that arc expanded upon in a potential Devil May Cry 6. But all in all, this plot will remain permanently tattooed to your subconscious long after you beat it, where the story has a lot of instantly iconic moments to be put in this franchise. The narrative itself does a really good job of respecting the Devil May Cry universe. It even expands upon the universe. So the main question that we have here goes a little something like this. Was Itsuno successful in proving that action hack and slash games can still be relevant in the current gaming climate? To that I'd say he succeeded with flying colors, because in an era of gaming dominated by story-based games that offer the most shallow gameplay experiences, and all of the open world sandbox games that have started to lack identity and originality with nothing but repetitive formulas, but Spider-Man is really good. I fucking love that game! And where the lowest common denominator genres are becoming the norm like Fortnite and PUBG, Devil May Cry 5 is a game that came along in 2019 to show the industry that fast-paced hack and slash games are still relevant in the gaming landscape, with crazy fun and addictive combat that has a lot of depth that you could just sink your teeth into for many late nights at a time, that give a ridiculous amount of options at your disposal, to the ridiculously entertaining and well-told story with the most badass characters in gaming, to even the spectacular visuals that makes the game an absolute stunner to look at. So I'll be awarding Devil May Cry 5 with a triple S rank, a masterclass in game design. If you can't tell already, I highly recommend Devil May Cry 5, even if this video spoiled the entire thing for you, because this game is just an absolute banger, and it's worth every penny of your buck. And it's available on every single current gen hardware, including Steam, so there's no excuse for not picking it up, because this game hits the absolute...
Don't you dare say it, jackpot!
Hey everyone, sorry that this one took a pretty long time to put out. It's kind of been harder for me to find time to put out content and make content in general, since I'm back in college and you guys know how much of a pain in the ass that can be. Anyhow, I would like to give a special shout out and thank you to Kyo Redgrave for letting me use his Deadweight Challenge video, where he beat Urizen in the prologue mission with no upgrades. It's a kick-ass video. It'll be linked down below along with his channel, so check him out for some badass DMC combo videos. I'd like to give a special shout out and thank you again to Yellow Motion for allowing me to use his motion capture video, so I'll be linking his video along with his channel, so check him out for news on your favorite upcoming games. I would also like to thank everyone who stuck around for this entire Son of Sparda retrospective from my first upload. I really appreciate that you guys give a damn about my videos, and thank you all for watching this video. I really appreciate all of your guys' support. And if you are new to my channel and you enjoyed this video, how about liking and subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon so that you know when I release a brand new video. And how about commenting below? This is the Devil Joe signing off. Catch you guys on the